to Animind, an anime podcast where we nerd out about all things anime and dive deeply into the storytelling art form while dissecting the psychological aspects that it speaks to. I'm your co-host, Matthew Basil.
I'm your co-host, Danny Ari.
And I am your co-host, Graham Pugh.
In tonight's episode, we are going into the film Ghost in the Shell, which came out in 1995. It was a groundbreaking film in the anime world and had a lot of influences since then and had a lot of spin-offs and created kind of a whole universe. But we're looking at the original 1995 Ghost in the Shell anime film. It was based off a manga, but I believe, the film was bigger than the manga was, right?
Yeah, and it still holds true. Like, the movie kind of not reimagined or not redefined, but it kind of took the series into a more focused direction that was a lot more like philosophical, from my understanding, like very navel-gazy. The director of this, Mamoru Oshii, like, that's how a lot of his movies are. They're very, not stoic, but very, like, kind of dry and, like, philosophical, and there's a lot of, like, conversations about, like, philosophy and stuff like that. I know in the original manga, it seemed like the medium was being used more as kind of the author's own self-gratification. Like, Motoko was used a lot as kind of, like, eye candy and serve as a vehicle for these themes and plot events, and was a little bit more of just kind of like a tease, which is not at all how she is in like every other piece of Ghost in the Shell media.
I will say in the film, I mean, she goes through various states of near nudity or nudity.
It's a synthetic body, so
it's
she didn't really
so
have
it doesn't count.
That's actually kind of funny that you bring that comes up, because like there's a sliding scale, I would say, of percentage of people who are cybernetic but are also still human, and like how much they're connected to each. Like on one end of the spectrum, you've got our antagonist, then closer to the middle, but still more towards the human side, is Major Kusanagi, Motoko, whatever you want to call her. And then on the most human side, but still like a cyborg, is Bato.
Well, if you think about it, there's somebody
not physically necessarily, because
with their personalities.
Yeah, because like the Major, like she didn't mind getting like naked on the boat or whatever, like when she goes to swim, but like Bato like turns away when she takes her clothes off. He's still part machine, but he still has that mindset of like, oh, that's immodest, I can't look at that.
Her being a gentleman, Graham.
Yeah.
Graham's like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm usually pretty good about that, honestly. But yeah, everyone in the main cast has some kind of cybernetic enhancement, except for blanking on his name.
I was about
to say, I can't remember if it was Togasa or Togasa. Yeah, Togasa. Right. It's not a major detail, but I also think it's kind of funny. I just now made this connection that not only is he the only one who doesn't have any kind of cybernetics, but he is also the only one who uses like everyone else is like very modern, and he doesn't have any cybernetics, and he still uses like a standard revolver, and like that gets brought up. So he kind of encapsulates all these like kind of old world perspectives, I guess. And on the other end, you've got people who are like almost completely cybernetic, who only have a few trace elements of kind of a conscience or like their humanity, and that's a major thing in the movie. Major, no pun intended, but yeah, that's a big part of kind of the movie thematically.
But yeah, for those who are like me a week ago, I did not know much about this movie or had seen it. I mean, it was made in 1995, takes place in 2029, I believe. So it's a futuristic Japan where basically robotics and technology have overtaken society and advanced. So everyone's got cybernetic enhancements and part machine, part human, or a full machine with some organic parts, and that's what we're talking about here with the cast, is different, cybernetic parts and different components that are human and different components that are machine. and to different degrees. It revolves around this like police unit. It's called like Section 9, right?
Section 9, yeah.
Yeah, this police unit, Section 9, that is trying to hunt down this like cyber terrorist known as the Puppet Master, which can hack into people's brains because a lot of them, I guess, right, because they all have, pretty much everybody has like some cybernetic like component to like in their brain. So you can hack into that. And the ghost is known as
their soul, basically.
Yeah, the ghost is their soul, right?
Yeah, the ghost is like their mind, their conscious, their consciousness.
Yeah.
And then the shell itself is like the physical. So ghost in the shell, it's like the mind and the body, basically.
Yeah.
And I guess the body in this case, in this film, in this world, is either mechanical, organic, or some combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's generally what it is. I can't remember what it specifically was used for, but there's a few characters who, at various points in the movie, they have like port in the back of their neck, and they like plug like these wires into it at a few points. I remember Bato and the Major doing that, but I couldn't remember what specifically it was for. I think part of it was like communicating with what's the section leader's name? I'm blanking.
Yeah, I could not follow many of their names, honestly.
There's a lot of characters. There's a lot kind of going on, but the thing is with those ports, yeah. So with the ports, it basically hooks them into the car, for example, so they can communicate. So they can not only control the car, they can communicate. They can see when they're chasing a bad guy. They can see the quickest route. They can see how to head him off at the pass. They can see any detours they might need to take, kind of like a Google Maps in their head. Think the Matrix style, like plugged in, you know.
Funny that you mentioned that, because the Wachowskis specifically cited Ghost in the Shell as being a major inspiration for the entire Matrix series.
And you could definitely see that.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the kind of neo-noir feel of the city that they walk around in.
Especially in the first scene when Motoko kind of jumps backwards off the building, and then like the people are looking down out the window at her, and then she's just looking up at them and falling in slow motion, and like her thermal optics like kind of blink off.
Oh yeah, that whole opening sequence didn't even need dialogue. That was just an amazing opening sequence.
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that it's all like you get a sense of the world just by the art and the way visuals take you through this world and what's happening, and all you have is this epic music in the background, and that's that happens like again right before the climax of the movie. There's this big, I guess like vocally silent part of the movie that's just all visual that you're watching happen, and I think that makes it more intense, because the whole idea of good storytelling is you're going to show, not tell. And I think the fact that they're showing you without any sort of like narration or commentary is super powerful.
This movie will not hold your hand and be like, oh, and in this world we have the ghost, and the ghost is this. Characters will sit around talking, like monologuing for like 2 minutes about how they perceive themselves as an individual and stuff like that. And it's like, buckle up, son, we're going in.
I was kind of lost, to be honest, through most of the movie, just like one step behind. But the gravity of the film, was so great. Like Danny said, the artwork and the visuals and just the feel of this world that they were building, that you just kind of were still stuck in. It reminded me actually, though, of a film professor when I was in film school. He said, most Western, movies, he said, if you skip the first 20 minutes, you can still follow the movie. It's actually a better movie because it's actually keeps you more compelled when you're a little behind and trying to figure things out, rather when you're spoon-fed everything. And this movie does not spoon-feed you anything. And that's, I think, what makes it so compelling.
Part of that is also very much the auteur flair of Mamoru Oshii, very much like wherein, as an illustration, in Western media, the director or screenwriter, whatever it might be, like, here comes the airplane. Oh, good job. You ate it. You did such a good job. And then Mamoru Oshii's, open your mouth, kid. Like, you're going to eat you're gonna eat the applesauce. No, he's
Yeah.
not gonna sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
He's gonna make
This
you
movie shoves the food right in your face.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there were parts where they're talking about something, like they have a conversation like about Section 6, Section 9. I'm like, what is Section 6 and Section 9? And you just have to piece
clues.
right, you have to use context clues and just piece this together as you're going throughout the movie. The puppet master, who's the main antagonist, I mean, he's already like, mentioned. They're already like know about him or her, whatever. We'll get into spoilers later, but and so you just have to piece that together and just like catch up with the characters.
I feel like every time I watch this, I immediately like back to back want to do enough like rewatch, like, because I always am like, okay, Section 6, what's their deal again? Oh yeah, and then I was like, well, crap, trying to mentally get caught up, and I'm losing kind of the moment to moment stuff. I'm like, okay. Now that I remember all that, now I can appreciate some of the other stuff. Now that I'm like, oh yeah, so that I forgot that's how the plot went, so that I can focus more on like the philosophy of it, the philosophy that they are saying like in actual scenes instead of just like the overarching kind of philosophical ideas, because I'm familiar enough with those, but like the individual perspectives and that type of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of philosophy. I don't know if I said that right, but there's a lot of philosophy in this film, which is also similar to The Matrix as well. Like I said, I think we might save some of that because we usually try to keep away from spoilers, but this ending of this film takes such a turn from the rest of the film in the last 10 minutes that we're going to need to discuss that, and we're going to need to dissect this. So we are going to do spoilers, but we'll warn you before we go spoilers. But for the first,
I disagree, but we'll save it for the end.
So if you want to sit, give for a philosophy lesson, sit back for the spoiler part at the end. But going back to the story, I just found it such an engrossing, and it was slower paced than any of the animes I had seen.
And this is a little bit of a history lesson. Are part of the reason that Ghost in the Shell is as popular as it is, because up until and even afterwards and during the 90s, anime was very niche, and it was mostly kind of things were like trickling out from Japan into the West, and it would be kind of whatever you could get your hands on, and then your buddy would lend you a tape of like a random OVA or like a random few episodes of some series that you don't have the full context for, and it's like, okay, whatever. And but it didn't like get mass attention in the West. And then that Ghost in the Shell was one of those movies that had a lot more people kind of turning their heads and seeing what's the deal with Japanese animation. That and like Akira, and there's a few other series, but that was like one of the big ones. And in hindsight, it's kind of funny because it's like Ghost in the Shell is the one that got big. I'm like, but it's so dry. Like, I feel like that would be off-putting for a lot of Western audiences that weren't already kind of initiated with anime and how it's animation, but it's not for kids, because Western perception of that is very different. But maybe that's also part of what the appeal was, is, oh, what's this weird thing? This isn't for kids, but it's also so dry that I feel like that would be a deterrent. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, if what I'm saying is accurate. But yeah, it was definitely very much a pioneer in not just the science fiction genre, but anime in general, especially in terms of its kind of fandom in the West.
I haven't really watched many of the others, but this movie is not for kids.
What makes you say that, Danny? The constant nudity, the constant violence, the adult themes of existence.
You know what?
My physical DVD off the shelf and show you the cover and how misleading it is, because it's funny that you say that, Matt. I'll be right back.
See, I think it's funny because it was around the whole time when it was so new to the Western part of the world. That is a ridiculously... For
those that obviously can't see it, they're listening. We're now looking at the DVD cover, which is
it's titties.
It's boobs.
It's boobs and a gun. Like
uncovered boobs, a gun over a city skyline.
It's the Majors. He's got on. The Major's got on cool sunglasses, she's got wires
I
hanging out of
didn't
her.
realize she had sunglasses. That just tells you, like, I was like, wait, there was sunglasses?
Also another Matrix nod, I guess. I didn't think about that.
Sunglasses, yeah, that's true.
She's got sunglasses on. She's got wires hanging out of her. She's just got like her synthetic skin, so she's nude, and then she's got a pistol in one hand. And I can't remember who it was on YouTube that I saw, but they told the story about when they were a little kid and they were like at Blockbuster or something, and they were like, "Mom, I want to get this," and it was Ghost in the Shell, but just because of the image of like a naked woman with a gun on there, Mom's like, "No, absolutely not." But then it's like,
smart.
Then he's like, smart parent.
It's like, it's going to be like very grotesque, very like explicit, you would think, based on the cover, and just kind of lowbrow. And it's like, oh God, anything but.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like that type of explicit, like, but just the themes in general, like no, there's not people like messing around on a rooftop like buck ass naked, like no, like
there is no sex, I think, in the movie. Actually,
no, and like that's what's
not physical.
We'll get into that later. Sorry, go ahead, Danny.
Lost my train of thought.
You said there's no people having butt naked sex on top of a roof.
Yes. So yeah, like it's not explicit in the way that the cover would make you guess. If you had no idea what it was about, but like it's enough to make parents be like, hey, maybe my child shouldn't be watching that. Like it's making the whole thing is a commentary on humanity. Like what is humanity? Like a lot of cyberpunk type of media is based on the whole idea of what constitutes being a human, what makes you human, how far can we go before we no longer are considered human? You know, what makes a soul? All of this, like, I would never want, like, a child to have to worry about their mortality this way. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, the first time I watched it was in, college. So rewatching it now, I'm standing firm on that position. Like, I'm glad I didn't see this as a teenager or something, because I think a lot of what I appreciate is because I'm getting older. I'm getting to a point in my life where I'm like, wow, man, like my joints hurt. When are they going to come up with these like some sort of like cyber joints that can, make me not hurt when I bend down to grab like trash off the floor? Like, I find myself like, I can relate to that. Like I would definitely take some cybernetic knees if I could right now.
I just replace my entire body with cybernetics.
Right? Yeah, this is fine. I like the idea of the humanity and like the fact that Kusanagi's character is so transparent, almost to a point where I feel like you said, she is the vehicle for these ideas to get across, and it's almost a little too obvious, because she'll have like a straight up monologue about what is it that makes a human. I'm like, that's cool and stuff, but dang, like that's kind of a lot of exposition.
It's like how much of it is the character and how much of it is the idea or the ideological perspective of the author that the story is trying to tell.
Right.
I mean, I'm totally okay when authors or writers like put in the philosophy. I love that stuff. Hey, let's have a discussion within the story. But there are some points in Ghost in the Shell where I did feel like, all right, even someone like me who loves this stuff feels that this is a little bit forced, a little bit inorganic. Like that scene on the boat after she goes diving.
That's the one I was going to reference.
Yeah, I'm like, who has this conversation?
But I mean,
I like how Bato kind of responds like the audience or like the everyman, where she's just kind of monologuing about individualism and the soul, and then Bato's just kind of like, ugh.
And then cracks open a beer.
Right? No, same though. Like honestly, I appreciate everything she said, and like a couple things that I felt like that was important to take away from that whole monologue was the questioning, because I feel like that's something you kind of need spoken, because you can't. It's an omniscient point of view. Like you are watching this, you can't hear them like thinking to themselves. So I feel like that was important to how she sees it. She's like comparing herself to this completely generated computer program, basically. And she's like comparing herself. She's like, man, sometimes I think I died a long time ago and someone took my brain and like put it inside this body. She's like, did we seem similar to you at all? And he's like, why are you asking me this, you know? But like, she has this doubt in her mind at this point because she's like, maybe there's no me to begin with. Maybe, you know, and he's like, you're doubting your own ghost right now. You're doubting your own like mind. What's going on? You know, he's speaking for the viewer. And I think that's really cool though, because out of all of that exposition, the point was it's voicing her doubt. And she's like, and then she's talking and she's like, that's the only thing that makes me human, the way I'm treated. And the whole idea of how somebody's treated, like, you could be a complete human, but still be nothing more than machinery if somebody treats you like crap, you know? And that brings us back to, like, the Astro Boy episode that we did in the beginning, you know? The second they found out he's a robot, they're like, oh, you're a robot. And then they treat him like crap. So it's that whole idea kind of coming through, like, a whole other type of medium. It's so much more serious than Astro Boy. Like, the themes are so much more serious, but it's the same idea. Like, what makes me human? Well, does it matter? Because we're all, like, there's pieces of us that are and aren't. Some of us are, like, 90% human. Some of us are, like, 4% human, you know? And the only thing that differentiates us from a program is because people talk to us like people.
Yeah, no, that was a really interesting thing. And kind of in conjunction with that, I thought was really interesting was the idea of, like, memories. Our lives are basically memories. And how accurate are those memories?
Yes. Oh my, that's like one of my favorite throughout the entire movie, one of my favorite things. Also the scariest thing is the fact that the second you start like adapting yourself to this futuristic world and start having these little pieces of like technology in you, you're susceptible to these cyber attacks via your brain or your body. And I grew up with like hippie conservative parents, you know, and the only part that I took away from that is I'm terrified of having an Alexa because, like, I'm like, oh my God, it's listening to me. Oh my God, somebody's going to listen to everything, you know? So, like, but I have a smartwatch that's always probably listening to me anyway, so it's fine. But, like, you know, like, I get the fear, but, like, the whole idea of somebody hacking your brain and, like, making you wonder if your memories are even your own. Like, at that point, like, if somebody can erase your memories or they can implant new ones, like, that's scary. And I think that it's such a compelling, like, they could have written an entire movie just on that.
Oh, I feel like that theme's been in other movies that I've seen, but I can't remember.
And Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go.
In both of them, they're characters who they think that they like, oh, this is my background or whatever, and then like someone else tells like a third person, or they find out, oh, hey, those weren't my memories, those were someone else's memories, and they just put them in my mind, and I thought I was just a normal human. They've just been implanted in me, and so my whole perception of myself as an individual based on my memories is completely shattered, because it's like that's what I've kind of based myself off of. It's always that anchor in who I am as a person. It's what's keeping me grounded. It's like I can always look back and I remember this happened, and in this and Blade Runner 2049, when it's like you find that out that no, you can't trust your memories, even if it's like the most fundamental memory that you have, it completely throws off your perception of who you are, and like it's an existential crisis, and I'm a sucker for that. And
like the whole idea of memories make us who we are, and you know, there's stuff that's kind of said throughout the movie that is kind of the same idea, and it's like if your memories can be faked, that like shapes who you are as a person. Like that's intense. Like even, you know, somebody, no spoilers, but later on in the movie, somebody says it can be argued that DNA is a program designed to preserve itself. So like, of course your mind's going to be like, yeah, these are my memories, because it'll break you if, you know, your body's, your brain's like, I'm going to preserve myself by believing that these are real, even though it doesn't make sense. Oh, I can't remember my wife's name or my kid's name or our anniversary, but I know they exist, you know, and that happens in real life. When you think about like trauma, people, they block out, like something traumatic happens. Like you can have situations where somebody completely forgets, They can develop a second personality to kind of fragment the trauma. They can take that trauma and let them become stronger, or they can, it can tear them down and it can make them weaker and, susceptible for other problems in the future. And so it's the whole idea of our body, like that line just like gets me, because like it's a program designed to preserve itself. And that's really what a human is. Like we're trying to preserve ourselves. That's what the brain's trying to do naturally. So you can argue that DNA is a program. You can argue that humanity is a program. And that's intense. That's a really heavy line of thought.
I was gonna read the monologue for that we kind of talked about from the boat, where she kind of talks about herself as an individual. There's one line from it that goes off of what Danny was saying. It ties into just a very brief, wordless exchange at a later point in the movie, but here's a line. Sure, I have a face and voice to distinguish myself from others, but my thoughts and my memories are unique only to me, and I carry a sense of my own destiny.
Yep, and that's perfect, because like literally she's like, yeah, so the rest of me is cybernetic, but my brain's my own. And then it's the whole idea of, oh, well, is it? This guy's memories are getting hacked. This guy's life isn't real. This guy's like working for somebody he's never met. He doesn't even know that he's a secret agent, kind of stuff. It makes you doubt yourself, your memories, everything. So it rolls back to that whole idea of like what makes a human and how really are they different. Yeah. It's just information in a container, if you think about it. That's really drab, but yeah.
No, I love it. And one
I love it.
And one moment that I don't hear people talk about enough that like really kind of ties into the Major's perspective, and specifically like what makes me unique. Is it this or is it this? And if it's not this, is it this? And if it's neither of those, what is it? Is there's just kind of a moment where like the Major is on like a ferry just going down kind of a canal, and then she like is just looking off, and then in a like the window of a building she sees another cyborg who looks exactly like her, like the same model and everything, and they just kind of like make eye contact, and then they go out of view, and that's it, because she's like, well, I have my own memories and thoughts, and that makes me unique. I think she says this before that, but she says, sure, I have a face and voice to distinguish myself from others. And then it's like she sees that other cyborg with like, the exact same model, and it's like, no, not really. She
probably has the same voice too, so like, eek, awkward.
That whole sequence to me is actually my favorite scene in the movie. That whole boat sequence. It's just, I mean, it's a completely silent scene. I mean, I think there's a musical score to it, but
yeah, like the little weird like bells or whatever.
Yes, but it's just, to me, that's like more cinematic than I've seen in movies in like the last 10 years. Like you said, I think it was you, Danny, who said like you show, you don't tell. And that was, I mean, so much was being said in that scene. And looking into her psyche, Motoko's mindset and what her thoughts, without her expounding these, philosophical things and just outrightly saying it. From that scene, I had such high hopes for the movie. And then it kind of took a turn.
it does. Before we get to the spoilers, I want to discuss like one more thing that I thought was really cool.
Yes, by all means.
So we already got like the whole idea of like human versus like what is human, blah blah blah. But I like the exposition, basically, like in the one of the first scenes. And then one of the last scenes. I know how you feel about the spoilers, and I'm not going to give spoilers just yet. But I really loved Hogus's character because he's just everyday Joe man, basically. He's mostly human. He's got a little, like, just the slightest augmentation that makes him technically cybernetic. And he's like, why did you want me? Like, I've got a wife and a family, and I'm just some cop. I love it because it highlights the fact that different can be good. And I love the idea because I'm weird as hell. So, like, give me all of the acceptance here. But she's like, you think differently. There's other ways of viewing a situation, because if everybody was the same, everybody would think the same. It wouldn't do any good to have a whole bunch of people that are all completely cybernetic with just human brains, or like all have these same type of, things. Like you come from a different background. You've got, less augmentation. You've got all of this. And she said, this is one of my favorite quotes, and I remember it from college to this day. She says, over specialization breeds weakness, because like, I like animals, so that immediately made me think of like the way that animals are bred, and I don't believe in breeding, but animals are bred to be like, oh, we want purebreds, and you've got a weakness there. You've got people who overbreed these German Shepherds, and they're known for having bad hips. They're known for having heart problems. They're known for having all these issues because you're not allowing any room for change. And something that's great about humanity is that over time we change, and that's how it is for every species. It's like the whole survival of the fittest. Like if you're focusing on just this one thing, like a breed, quote unquote, or a special super fast agent, you're eliminating any sort of way to get better. You're going to be stagnant. And I think it like really speaks to like people, because if you are focusing all about, God, let's take it back to like an example for like teenagers. I want to be popular. I'm going to go to all the parties, talk to all the people. I'm going to spend all my time doing this on the weekends, but you're not studying. Like you're not spending any time with your family. So like you have these other weaknesses. You suddenly are focusing too much on this one thing. And I really appreciate the fact that she's like praising him. She goes, you're different. I like that you're different. You make us stronger because you're different. And I think that's like a really powerful theme that unfortunately doesn't get shown throughout a lot of the movie until the very end. One of the characters says, copies do not give rise to variety or originality. And that is my other favorite quote. And it's funny because they both have the same idea, is the fact that if we were all the same, nothing would make us special. And I think that's like such a powerful thing. Like I wish I heard when I was like 14, because you're picked on for being different. You're not the tall, skinny, blonde, popular girl with like straight hair and, whatever. And you're picked on, or, oh, you're not athletic. So doesn't matter if you're smart, you're not athletic. So it's that whole idea. I think it's a really powerful thing to tell, I guess, the young people, like, about accepting themselves.
The young people.
Yeah, I know. I feel like an old lady sometimes.
Yeah, we're all senior citizens. I don't know if you listeners knew like that. We all sit in a senior citizen home watching anime together.
Right. Anyway, Graham, sorry. Go ahead. I know you're excited.
No, you're good. It was a dumb thing. I didn't mean to interrupt. But even though, like, thematically you were talking about, like, how it works that that guy, the guy.
Togusa.
Oh, yeah, Togusa. Is,
I'm not the only one who can't pronounce names. Yeah.
I'd say, hey, this is my only one, I think.
That's true. You're still far behind me.
How his individuality and the fact that he's, like, almost entirely, like, organic makes him stand out on a practical level. It would suck if everyone was cybernetic and then they all just got hacked and
I was thinking about that. I'm kind of disappointed that was a missed opportunity, because they're always talking about how he's like barely cybernetic and then everybody's getting hacked and all this craziness. And I'm like, okay, but think of it from like a computer like level. If you've got all of these like special computers and they have to run all these crazy programs, and you get this virus for like touchscreen laptops, and you're just some like 95 Dell, like you're not going to get the virus because you're so like you don't have that program, you don't have the programming. So I know I'm highlighting how old I am.
I've Dell over here clutching its cane.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
We are getting to the spoiler area, so I will go ahead and say that now. If you haven't watched the movie and you don't want spoilers, don't keep listening and then listen afterward. But
from here on out, we are going to be talking about spoilers.
Yes. But the whole thing is that it was a missed opportunity for them to show that, yeah, sure, she says that being different makes you stronger, but they could have shown it. They could have shown, like, hey, we all have this weakness. We can't go in there because we're going to get a virus. It could have been something as simple as, if we walk in there, we're susceptible, but you aren't. Go. That shows a strength. And I think it could have been so easy to show it instead of, just saying it, because, actions are always going to speak louder. There's a couple missed opportunities, but that was one of the ones that I thought was going to come up, and it didn't. It was sad.
Like, they do kind of telegraph it like an odd amount from what I can remember, and then it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. I haven't seen every piece of Ghost in the Shell media, because I know there's at least 5 Ghost in the Shell movies that I haven't seen. Oh, I mean, of the ones I haven't seen.
Oh, okay. I was like, there's a lot of media of Ghost in the Shell.
Live action one aside, like 6 off the top. Yeah, we don't talk about it. So I don't know if they go into more detail about, or they go into kind of that territory with any of those. And I haven't seen the majority of the TV series standalone complex. What I have seen, it was over half my lifetime ago. So some of the details might be hazy, but I know everyone else in the section gets a lot more attention than they do in just the movie. But there is a chance that might be covered in one of those.
No, just looking at it, standing by itself, the movie, it's a missed opportunity. It bothers me.
Yeah. Especially with kind of how our main antagonist operates.
Well, now we can get spoilers. So the Puppet Master is completely programmed. He has become a self-aware program and has developed a ghost, basically. The fact that, that's what screws with Kusanagi is she's like, what if I'm not real? And that was enough to make anyone question themselves at that point, because you're like, who knows? Memories can be deleted, memories can be added. Who knows if I'm, just this program that developed a consciousness, and I think the fact that he's completely cybernetic, he has no humanity, it trips me up, because I feel like that would have been a great comparison if Tokus's character was a little stronger. It would have been a great, yin and yang situation, just, seeing the two contrasting elements, against each other, and maybe have, I'm not saying he needed to be the hero, but show his strength against somebody who's so strong that everyone's struggling to fight. It would have been a great opportunity, I guess.
That was actually the over-specialization, you breed a slow death. That is actually what I have written down in my notes, too, because I love that one as well. Because I'm a huge fan of nature. I find nature fascinating. And nature breeds diversity. Nature wants diversity. Because if you're we're talking purely in nature here, and if you want to extrapolate this to humanity, feel free. But in purely in nature, I mean, if something comes around like a fungus, a predator, a storm, and there's an organism that has a different way of doing things, it's a lot, and everybody else gets wiped out, that one organism or those three organisms are going to survive, and they'll be able to repopulate everybody, which could have been, like you said, a great way to go about in a world where they set up this whole dynamic between human and organic and cybernetic and computer, to have the technology start failing, have a virus come through, and it's the unique individual who's organic is the one who could survive. That would have been a great way to go, because there was those themes present, and there were these quotes, and there were these discussions, and I was so waiting for that.
Yes. Yeah.
And or there was the whole concept, if they wanted to go with the whole memory thing, and they actually could have dovetailed these two together great, but it could have been the whole concept of what's real and what's not, what's a programmable memory
versus,
and they don't go with either one of these. Instead, in the last 10 minutes, when they find out the Puppet Master is a program who has become sentient and conscious and put himself into a cybernetic shell, so basically the ghost puts himself into a shell, Monako hunts the shell down and decides to connect with him, and he's like, well, I think we should mate. And that's the entire ending.
I know. Let me.
Hey, girl.
And I'm just like, why did you fumble this ball right here? You had so many ways to go.
Okay, hold on. I have some words. I have some words I need to say. I need to get because I know, Matt, you specifically are going to agree with this. The fact that the whole movie, like I said, I love writing and I love, character development. This is a step in the wrong direction for Kusanagi, because literally she's got this fear that maybe I'm not real, or she's compliments basically Togusa's character, and she's like, you're different, it's good, it's awesome, like you have these strengths that only humans can have. And then she's like, yeah, you want to hook up and hook up. You want to
nice pun.
Robot human hybrid. And literally the last, she because the bodies get destroyed, she has this little kid body, and she's like, literally everything about her, nothing about her is the same anymore. There's nothing about her is herself anymore. And that's the whole point of the movie, is that, at least my brain and my memories are the same. And she's like, oh yeah, so I'm not the Puppet Master or Kusanagi anymore. I'm something new. And I'm like, but didn't you want to keep your original? What the? I'm so mad about it, because the last 10 minutes, it's like, we're going to get you there. We're going to get you there. Oh, just kidding. It's it's a tease, and it upsets me so hard.
Graham, I know, like you said, you seem to be a defender here, so maybe you could explain to us. I did not see that coming. I didn't see any, like Danny said, build up.
But it wasn't a good surprise. It's one of the, I didn't see that coming. That's crazy. No, it was I didn't see that coming. I feel like I just got kicked in the head.
Yeah, I was fine with the twist about the Puppet Master being a sentient program. I was also on board with that. That's cool. You can do that. But not that, again, that's we've seen that in other movies. Maybe ones after Ghost in the Shell. Maybe Ghost in the Shell was the first one who did it. I'm not sure. I would have to look at the dates. But, I was okay with that. That's a twist ending. I'm talking that I didn't see this coming, as far as nothing Kusanagi said or did up until this point gave any indication.
It's out of character. It's
that she would want to meld with the Puppet Master to create a new program that was all powerful, basically.
And and also it's okay, so if you're watching a movie where they had to fire a director right before the ending, they're like, yeah, so this is what we wanted, and then the new guy comes in, he's like, nah, throw it all away. This is what we're doing, and I just want to rage quit at that point, because it's great up until that point.
It felt like a tacked on ending. And Graham, feel free to try to persuade us otherwise here if you want to.
Can you? Can you?
I mean, I can. It might just devolve into, well, I think this and you think that, and that's like agree to disagree.
But okay, what we're asking is because I think we're very biased in how we're viewing it. I feel like somebody who really like I like the movie. I just like everything up to the last 10 minutes. Like,
yeah, me too.
But for somebody who owns the movie, the special case and the actual physical copy, I feel like maybe you've probably watched it more times than we have put together. Like, am I missing something? Like these clues, this dramatic buildup and leading, maybe I missed something. Maybe there is something that was like, oh, this was going to happen and I expected it, but I didn't see it.
I'm like, not like explicitly that. Like throughout the movie, even before they find out that the puppet master has gained its own sentience, even though it is a program that has put itself into a physical body. Like she's been kind of questioning her own individuality and everything. Right. And then when she discovers the puppet master, she's like that, like she was already kind of grappling with that idea.
She's giving up?
Not giving up. It throws her whole perception and her whole sense of self gets kind of thrown out of whack. It's not explicitly stated just because this movie is not very directive.
I think if that's the way they wanted to go, there should have been like a scene of her having this realization. They could have done one of those cool like musically charged scenes where she has some sort of realization like, this is what I believed, but this is how like everything's changed. Like it could have been something as like simple as this AI program shows humanity somehow. Like some sort of realization on her part that's like, what makes us so different after all? I get that that's like, I'm kind of seeing that there could be an argument for that's what the whole point of the movie was, to be like, oh, what's the difference really? Yeah. But I feel like there's so many clues heading in different directions for different themes that I don't get. I wouldn't pick that one out as like, I'd have to really think about it. And I've watched it a few times to be like, all right, I can kind of see where that was what they were going for.
Yeah.
It wasn't super clear, but having some sort of realization, like if they're going to have exposition about her thought process, that would have been a great place to put it. Like, just have her go, hey, maybe we're not so different after all. Yeah, let's do the thing. Like, it could have been something that simple.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But they gave us nothing. They just blindsided us with a kick to the face.
Well, speaking, this is not mine, but
speaking of a kick to the face, no.
Yeah, speaking of the critical consensus is, at least that, according to my understanding, is that the whole point of the movie was that she was a symbolic of a woman who lost her femininity because there was no more reproduction. And because, this is what the critics are saying. It's on Wikipedia, so I'm not making this up.
Oh, everyone knows Wikipedia is all true.
Oh, yeah.
Edit that. Hold on, be right back.
I'm just saying I didn't pull this out of my ass. All right, somebody else pulled it out of
Somebody else did that. All right,
yeah,
okay.
Somebody else did.
I
am not taking responsibility for this, but that is the reason why she's naked through most of the movie, is because she's struggling with her femininity. And that's why at the ending is the way it is, because she finds a way to regain her feminine identity by birthing a child.
Okay, I like, if you really, really, really want to dissect it and pull all of the... Okay, just pretend we didn't do this podcast. None of that's important. No, but that's what, like, if that's what they wanted to do, I don't feel like it was a very strong portrayal of that, because there were so many other themes that it kind of pulls away from, like, if that's what they were going for. I don't know. I feel like there was a lot else going on that almost completely contradicts that idea.
I agree.
With the feminist aspect of that, like, I don't agree with, but the fundamentals, like what you were saying earlier, and like what the film says about DNA, I see the puppet master as actually being one that applies to more, because the puppet master is the one who initiates the merge and create a new being. Like, we can't reproduce, but the creation of a new being by us merging will be our reproduction, and like how we will pass the torch forward.
But can we talk about how people are still reproducing, because Tokus's character literally states that he has a child?
Yeah, man, I know.
But if they hadn't added that and they were like, oh yeah, like, we live so much longer now, there's no need for children. Like, any sort of piece of, like, commentary on the kids, or, like, that's why I think that's BS. I think somebody's just reading really hard and really wanted to, like, confuse a class of college students, because that doesn't, I can't support that. I vehemently disagree with it.
I mean, at the end, they're I don't know where they are. I guess they're in some kind of museum or something like that for this last scene when they merge, and there's the genealogical tree of, I guess, organisms. So, I mean, I could see maybe trying to say that, I guess robots, what's the difference? How different are we?
They've evolved into something beyond, because it's not human. The Major is a human who has been enhanced, but at the end of the day is a human who's had all these external, like, kind of adjustments, but her essence is human. The puppet master who is in essence
Not
artificial.
human.
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
The idea that artificial intelligence could reach humanity, or, like, what's the difference between humanity and artificial intelligence, I feel like wasn't really, it wasn't front and foremost in the rest of the movie.
It was definitely there, but I wouldn't say that's the main theme, because a good movie has more than one theme, and you've got, like, surface themes and subplots and all of this, I understand, but I just don't see how that, the whole kid aspect, at least, like, I don't see that. I definitely see the whole, like, celebrating our differences, and then, like, it's confusing with the ending, and then, like,
let's merge our differences,
right? And then
together.
There's what's the difference between, like, human and not human. Like, does it matter? I see that. And then there's, all these other things, but, like, the whole, like, kid thing, I don't see that. Like, but speaking of what Graham was just talking about, how, like, almost complete, like, she, we were talking about how she's, like, almost completely a, sorry, your flickering of your light is, like, looks like you're having a dance party. I know the listeners can't hear this, but there's, like, a dance party happening in Graham's room, and it's very distracting for my ADHD.
I have 3 light bulbs on my overhead fan. One of them has burnt out. One of them is working. I thought the other one was working, and now it's, like, shorting out.
I'm just not going to look at the screen. This is fine.
Graham's having technical difficulties.
Right? But only with the lighting, it's fine. But, like, what was I saying? Oh, no.
Well, I could see, like, again, they just didn't pull it together because we have this great thing about over specialization, which as we both talked about, like, in nature, things are diverse, right? And then granted, in nature, you merge those diversities. That's what, sex is in nature, right? Lack of a better word. Sorry, kiddies. We'll put a disclaimer on this one.
Explicit
explicit content.
Adult themes.
Adult themes of reproduction.
Birds and the bees, children.
Right. So I get where that kind of can link up, but you were kind of taking it to such a deeper level than just, let's merge our differences to make a better robot. Like, it's...
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of short-selling yourself if that's what you think the movie is about. I feel like if that's what you think the main movie is about, like, you need to rewatch the movie a couple times and, like, really dissect it. Like, I've wrote papers on this movie. Like, I feel like there's so much more that's way deeper, way more meaningful.
It's called Ghost in the Shell, which Ghost in the Shell is a term used in the movie, basically, like I think Graham said, to represent consciousness or soul or essence. Whatever your beliefs are, they don't specify it. And I think that, to me, would have been that what makes the human. Right. And with the ending, you kind of suggest that what makes the human is the ability to reproduce.
Okay. All right, and just if that's like how we're gonna focus for like a second.
I don't agree with that.
Well, as someone who like doesn't want kids, and I'm gonna get a little real here for like just a second. Like, that's a personal choice, and I think it's really narrow. I think it's really selfish for people to be like straight up. My dad straight up told me. I told him I don't want kids, because there's a lot of, like, issues and, like, physical, mental, a lot of stuff that I don't want to be passed down. And I told him, like, I don't want kids, and I don't think I could carry him to term even if I did. And he's like, well, then what's the point? Why are you even alive then? And as hearing this as a 16-year-old girl, like,
Lord.
that's dark. That's really messed up. And, like, that messes with your head. And to tell people that, hey, this is what makes a human, or if we're going to talk about the whole femininity aspect, like, that's a really, like, offensive view to be like, hey, that's what makes a female. Like, I'm sorry. Like, also, advocating for the trans rights here, like, whether or not you can reproduce does not make it, like, no. I think that, like, I know so many women, biological women who can't have kids. That does not mean they're not a woman. So I think that whole view is very problematic in itself. So I also would not like to entertain that idea as the theme. But I digress. I think that if that's what they wanted to do, they could have shown it better. And I probably wouldn't have liked the movie as much.
I mean, maybe that's why it smacked to me, because I'm in the same, I'm similar boat to you, Danny. I mean, I don't want to have kids, and I made sure I won't have kids, to be a little TMI here. I'm in the same way. I don't think reproduction is necessarily the highest elevation of life existence. Again, we're all unique individuals. For some people, maybe, raising children is that's what they feel their life purpose is.
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
fine. And I mean, I don't look down on that at all, but it doesn't mean that that's the highest calling in life,
For
bar
you.
none.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's not for me. For me, I know it's not.
But that's bringing it back to the whole theme that I believe is the theme. Like, I celebrate that difference. I think it's great that if I want a kid, I'm going to go adopt. That doesn't bother me at all. And there's so many kids without homes. I'm here for it. Just like animals, adopt, don't breed. Like, absolutely. Because there's just, I celebrate the fact that people want different things and people hold priority different things, because that's what makes us all unique. That's what makes us special, and that's what makes us stronger. And I feel like your strengths and someone else's weaknesses, it can be the thing that brings you together. It's the whole yin and yang thing. I feel like that's what makes humanity a big old circle. That's how we're going to keep going on, is that we have all these differences. If we were all the same, we wouldn't be special or original anymore. Like, bringing it all back full circle. I think that's what makes life beautiful, is our differences, and the fact that we don't want the same thing.
I agree. I think that is what life is about. It's about the uniqueness that is brought to the individual, and how that unique individual, or that uniqueness that is brought to the individual, applies to the community of life. I mean, again, I go back to nature when you're talking about. I mean, it's about, yes, nature does obviously want you to reproduce in mass numbers, because a lot of things can kill animals.
Yeah, but we're overpopulated as a planet.
Right. Humans are overpopulated anyway, so we should probably take a step back from that one.
Right.
But, from that aspect of nature. But nature also wants you to be diverse. It wants you to exist in and fit that diversity into that community of life, because change is how things evolve. It is the evolvement. It is through change, not only through physical evolvement, meaning, you grow a tail or whatnot, or lose a tail, but through, personality, through developments of the mind, through, abilities and culture. Yeah, exactly. Growth of the individual, and growth of the culture of the people you're in. If that's what they were trying to say, I think it got a little bit misconstrued.
I think the ending, because as someone who, that's what I really believed, and that's the way I took the movie, and I guess you did too, I feel like the ending kind of falls flat, because the whole point of, like, the ending is to, like, wrap things up. And I feel like instead of wrapping things up, it, like, took everything you thought you knew, and it's like, let me just undo this braid, and we're just gonna leave it out here, and you're gonna take it, because it's the end of the movie. There's no other way to, like, redo this movie. Sorry, bye. And I don't know, I was disappointed, but everything up to the last 10 minutes was awesome.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Now, Graham, as probably the biggest Ghost in the Shell fan of the three of us here, to speaking for the Ghost in the Shell fans, because it, obviously has a huge following and resonated with a lot of people. Do you want to say some defense here of the?
I know we're just attacking.
As Danny and I just gang up.
Spoilers. The movie sucks.
Yeah. Do you want to speak for the Ghost in the Shell fans out there? Because we might not be back for another episode because Josh Berkey is a huge fan of Ghost in the Shell.
I'll message Josh about this.
I know.
I'll message him like, hey, pull the plug.
The next episode will just be Graham, and I'm hosted by only Graham.
So I'm going to be doing a solo episode, and I will have 2 co-hosts next time. Or I'll have like the bizarro versions of Matt and Danny, like in Seinfeld.
Oh my God.
Be 2 completely different people posing as us. Captain Nostalgia did not appreciate our bashing of Ghost in the Shell.
But no, I'm not saying the movie was bad altogether. Like, literally, it was just the last 10 minutes. Everything else was beautiful. I could talk for another hour about how great the graphics and, like, the way that the sliding vision of the camera, the view, I guess, of the viewer, like the screen was just, it was like a painting, like in slow motion. It was just really well done. And I could talk about that forever, but I felt like there was so much more important things to talk about in this film. And
it's a film that's done. It's made for this medium. It's beautiful. There's one elevator scene where they go down where I'm just like, you couldn't even do this, I think, in live action. This was made for the anime medium, this kind of story.
He said, I don't think they could even do this in live action. I said, yeah, Ghost in the Shell 2017. You hear that?
Yeah. But I'm not saying the movie's bad, Josh. Sorry. It's not bad. But it's great up until the last 10 minutes. And I'm not saying like the rest was bad or that it was like, I'm very disappointed, but like it made me kind of question how I viewed the movie. And I don't think the viewer should never have to question themselves. I understand that everybody views movies differently, and that's what's beautiful. But you shouldn't. The viewer shouldn't be confused at the end. It's different when you watch a movie like Inception, and you're like, wow, it's kind of confusing. We don't know if it's a dream or not. It's very clear she just gave up what was left of her humanity, and for making humanity such a big theme, it just didn't fit. I guess that's as simple and nicely as I could state it.
Do you have a counter for that, Graham?
We about to fight? No.
I feel like you need to give your piece for the Ghost in the Shell fans out there. So.
Yeah, you need to speak for them.
And then we can just... It's like
we can end the podcast and then argue. No.
Yeah, and then we will argue off air. And there may be one less host next job.
I think her whole thing was, what's an individual? Like, who am I? What am I? And then, like, everything gets brought into question as more evidence is presented, and that brings her perspective into question, and she just kind of thinks more and more about what makes an individual. And then the puppet master comes up, and then it's like, oh, well, this guy is really making me question everything. They're merging. It's like the next step in evolution. Like, and I think that's highlighted best by when she's fighting the tank, and then it blasts like through the tree of life, except for the very top is all that hasn't been shot.
That's dark. I never thought of it that way, but that's really dark.
See, Graham has a deeper. So go continue, Graham.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just like, oh, I didn't even think of it that way. Continue.
A whole new, not just individual is created, but like a whole new entity. It's like the next step in evolution. Yeah, like a new species and like a new individual that changes her own are their own perspective. Everything has changed. You hear a different voice coming out of this new body, and like that merging and creation of a new species and individual, I think, is supposed to be highlighted by the fact that her new body is like a child. It's like, here's their metaphorical offspring.
Yeah, I got that, because he's like, yeah, we don't have to like actually reproduce like regular old humans do, like reproduce with your mind. Nah. But I understood that was the point of the whole kid body. She's like, oh no, my body got destroyed. This is all they had left. It just happened to be a kid. Oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah, that's a lot of that is on the director. He's very like, it's like real deep, man. The kid body, it like represents a whole new thing, man.
I feel like it was almost like shoved in your face at that point, but I was like, all right, I'll take it.
He's not for subtlety. I didn't know I was going to have to, I'll have to come up with a better, more developed, persuasive argument. Because I'm trying to think of like what exactly it was that made her change her perspective. But yeah, okay, let's merge. Like she had everything brought into question. And it was like, what made that the step for her that made the most sense?
Okay, so since you said persuasive, and I got my degree in writing, it's like, okay, let me think of it from that, like if I were writing a paper and I had to like come up with an argument about the turning point, if that was the theme that I had to write it on, the only thing I could possibly come up with is when she has that whole moment of what makes a human. Was I ever a human to begin with? And I understood that. But see, I can't, because it still didn't bring up the whole kid thing. I'm trying to defend it, and I can't. I'm sorry. I fail. I'm a bad writer. Sorry.
About the kid thing. Like, I thought you said you understood that earlier.
I did, but I think I overthought it, and now I don't understand it anymore. I'll have to re-listen to the episode now and be like, oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But no, I lost it. It's gone, because it makes too little of sense to me, and I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a deep movie.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless, it's just somewhere in the deep forest, someone got lost, whether it was the filmmakers or Danny and I. I guess that's what you said. I think we're starting to say. I just didn't see the turning point in Motoko.
Right. Motoko just seems to make it out of the blue. And like I said before, I think if there was this single thought. The connective tissue that's like, hey.
Wait, what?
Right. So if you argued like this is what supports it, the whole this or that, and this is where she goes, because there's a writing. I'm trying to remember the actual term for it. It's an inciting incident.
Inciting action.
Inciting action, yes. So that's the thing that causes the change, because, like I said, character development is my thing. There's usually an inciting thing that happens that causes this change. And I feel like her just being like questioning herself, like I question myself all the time. Like that's not gonna make me be like, I'm gonna go make babies with robots now. Like, I feel like that turning point should have been stronger, and I feel like maybe you could argue it at that point.
And that's what upset me about the film. Not only did I think the ending was disappointing, but at least if they had connected it there, I would have said, okay, that was kind of not where I was expecting you to go. I wish she kind of went somewhere else.
I can see how you got there.
But okay, you decided to go there. That was the choice of the story you wanted to take. But that's where I'm more critical, is because, I just don't even know why you chose to go in that direction.
I'll have to rewatch it again and see where, as subtle as it may be, that the turning point kind of sticks out to me. Darn, I gotta watch Ghost in the Shell again.
Oh no, you're gonna message me at 2 a.m. You're like, I found it!
Wake up!
If you were to rate this film, like, if you were a critic and you wanted to rate this film, Matt, how would you rate it?
Like a 4 out of star thing, you mean?
Like, say a 4 out of 10. I was like, what?
Nah. I mean, if we're talking like 5 stars being the best, I would probably rate it at about maybe 3, just because like I said, liked everything there. I liked what they were doing with the themes. I liked the thematic element. To me, it's like, to use a baseball, which I do not like baseball at all, but to use a baseball analogy, it's like the player got up to home plate. You expected them to hit a home run, and then just at the last minute, they just bunted just to get on first base. That was what the movie was to me. It dropped the ball at the end for me, and it
I
could
don't
have
think I can
been
do
so
this
much greater.
podcast anymore with you.
Oh no,
Ghost in the
Graham's
Shell,
canceling
baseball?
us. No. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you, Danny?
Since I already know how, well, I kind of have a feeling how Graham's gonna vote.
Yeah, we'll leave Grant to last. The Ghost in the Shell fans.
So I think a 4. I think I'm a little closer to a 4 because most of the movie had great cinematography, had great music scores, and the way that they showed a lot of information without saying it was powerful. The themes up until the last 10 minutes were cohesive. They carried from the beginning to the end. And I just really appreciated the themes up until that point. Okay, that last star being taken off because that last 10 minutes was whack. And then just the fact that there's a little too much exposition. It's funny because they're so good. The movie was so good at like giving you information without telling you. But then there's certain parts where they question that and they're like, oh, here's a bunch of information. You know, I feel like there was a lot of dialogue that could have been shown instead of just straight up said. If you looked at a script, it would look like a wall of text. And I like for any writing or any type of media, I really don't like that. I don't, it's like a run-on sentence almost, and it's not broken up. And I feel like the viewer gets lost in it unless you're dissecting it sentence by sentence, which I was. So I was literally pausing so I could like write down notes. But I shouldn't have to do that. It shouldn't be that difficult. But yeah, 4 out of 5 because everything up to the last 10 minutes minus that extra exposition, it's really well done. And then Graham.
You guys actually might be kind of surprised by my score. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So like a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah.
Really? Why did you give it so low? For considering you obviously are a fan of it.
I could talk about like it's the ideology of it all day, and I like the characters. My biggest drawback from it is just how dry it can be and how much it throws at you. It's a lot to have to like digest. My mental metabolism is not as fast as it used to be.
Yeah, it's not like going back to Primera, which we covered in episode 2, which had a lot of deep themes as well, but was just such a fun ride through, from beginning to end.
Stylistically, it was different too.
But I mean, Ghost in the Shell, I guess, is not a like fun ride.
This is not a fun ride. This is a terrifying ride.
It's a very meditative film. Like
it's like when you get to the top of the like right before the drop on a roller coaster and things just kind of like stop and then you're like, oh god.
You're just like, oh no, oh
so
god, oh no.
You got time to think about how the rest of this ride is gonna go.
All right. That's a great metaphor, and I think that's the best way to summarize it.
Well, if you listeners out there are Ghost in the Shell fans and feel like you found the incited, what the incitive action, right? Is
to
that
me,
the term?
comrades, to me.
Right?
Yeah, and if you know what the incitive action was for Motoko or the connective tissue to the end, or feel that we missed something that explains why she does what she does at the end and what the end was supposed to symbolize, feel free to email us at animindpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to maybe amend our ratings here.
Right.
So next episode we will be covering Spirited Away, nominated for an Oscar, I believe.
Yes, another big landmark in attention towards anime in the West.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting discussion, interesting to dissect that movie. So we'll be doing that next episode. So I hope you join us. In the meantime, where can they find you?
You can find me at Kittens and Caffeine on Instagram.
You guys can find me on Twitter under Mad Shellfish 2. I talk about fighting games and Dark Souls and reposting cool art and anime and all sorts of dumb, dorky stuff.
Nice.
Sounds amazing. As of right now, you can find me on humanOneNature.blogspot.com. That's where I post some of my short stories and writings, since I am a writer. You listeners can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains, over at victimsandvillains.net. There you can find the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube accounts of Victims and Villains. You can find movie resources, movie reviews, podcasts like the one you're currently listening to. And most importantly, you can find the Victims and Villains Mental Health Resource Library, which has a lot of information where if you're struggling with themes of identity, like our character in Ghost in the Shell, or any kind of mental health issues, you can find help. Till next time, keep both your mental health and anime on the mind.